Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. It's the end of 2021 and I thought I would do something special. I'm going to be ranking 20 animated films that came out this year. Before I begin though, I'd just like to make it clear that not every single animated movie that came out this year is going to be included on the list. Either because it hasn't been released in the UK yet, or I just simply didn't get time to watch it. So if a particular movie doesn't pop up, it's not because I forgot, it's either due to time or limitations. Anyway, it's time to rank all those films. Addams Family 2. Tired of her family's antics, Wednesday begins to speculate that she's not really an Addams, and that maybe her real father is scientist Cyrus Strange. In order to spark family morale and avoid Cyrus's minions, Gomez insists that the Addams go on a road trip to the darkest places across America. The idea of Wednesday being self-conscious of her family's quirkiness goes against the whole appeal of the Addams. That's my issue with Addams Family 2. It just doesn't get these characters at all. The Addams are a kooky bunch of weirdos who sincerely love each other, yet this film misses that point entirely by throwing conflict between them. These Addams aren't a happy, healthy family who happen to be goths. They're an unhappy, unhealthy family in a goth coating. They disrespect each other, lie to each other, and even feel ashamed of each other. For example, the charm of Wednesday and Pugsley's sibling relationship is that Wednesday is cartoonishly violent to her brother, but he loves the pain and he finds it funny.
Thank you for your assistance.
Yeah! Thanks, Dad!
Addams Family 2 translates this classic dynamic into making Wednesday a full-on bully. She constantly torments and tortures her brother, and he reacts in serious pain or distraught. It isn't funny to watch, it's just cruel.
Please, darlings, quiet down. I'm trying to find a signal.
As a vacation movie, it totally wastes the idea of a spooky road trip adventure, because the family don't stop many places, and most of the locations barely count as gothic landmarks. We also don't spend that much time at these travel stops either, because Gomez and Morticia want the family to constantly move forward so that they can keep avoiding the villains.
Gomez, look. Isn't that the weaselly man who came to the house looking for Wednesday?
Well, I have to admit, I admire the man's tenacity.
Look, I have nothing against a modern update of the Addams Family. Hollywood is totally free to reboot and remake the series all they want, but I can't in good faith say that this is a charming reimagining. It's a shallow commercialization of everything that the Addams Family stands for. I rank this film right at the very, very bottom because it flanderizes a franchise that I hold dear to my heart and find comfort from. Sure, kids today will maybe enjoy this film just fine, but there's already much better versions of the Addams Family out there for children to watch. Versions that actually respect the source material and know what makes these characters endearing. The Loud House Movie. Inspired by the Nickelodeon TV series, the Loud House Movie follows the huge and noisy Loud family. Lincoln, the only boy, feels intimidated by how all his sisters are talented and no one pays attention to him. After the Louds discover that they have Scottish heritage, they go on vacation to their ancestors' town, Loch Loud. They learn that they've inherited a castle too and decide to stay in it over their holiday, much to the dismay of its caretaker Morag. We also find out that the Loud's ancestors were identical to the family today, and that the boy of the family was a well-respected duke. Lincoln convinces the town to elect him as the new duke, which angers Morag, who uses her ancestors' book to interfere with the Loud's new life. Now, I've never ever watched a single episode of Loud House in my life, but I will say that this movie was quite accessible for someone who had never seen the show before. However, the downside is that this is a very bad film. Despite having movie in its title, its animation is just as cheap as the TV show. No effort at all was made to increase the budget to make it feel bigger. Which is strange, because Nickelodeon usually put the money in for their feature films. The Loud House Movie is also painfully boring. Not only does it take a whole 45 minutes before our villain Morag actually does anything constructive, but it's also very, very, very predictable, to the point where you can work out where things will go 3 scenes in advance. The world building is terrible as well. Like magic, ghosts and dragons are suddenly introduced in the story, and everyone processes these things in a heartbeat. So there's no wonder or awe to the fantasy elements. Don't get me wrong, the Scottish setting is lovely, and Loch Loud itself has a quaint charm to it. But Scotland is more of an aesthetic backdrop than anything, so don't expect any insight into the actual culture because it's purely cosmetic. I failed to find a single Loud to like too. Lincoln is selfish for only wanting to become a duke for himself, manipulative for using psychological tricks to get his family to stay in Scotland, and deeply hypocritical for attempting to steal his sister's thunder in one scene. Yes, Lincoln does eventually admit to his error by the film's end, but tagging on a life lesson at the last minute doesn't change how the film made him too insufferable to sympathize with.
It's not fair! I'm the Duke! I'm supposed to be the most special out of all!
While the Loud sisters are left to be one-note side characters, whose only purpose is to comfort their brother when he's sad. It's like they don't matter as much as Lincoln, even though the film is supposed to be about the whole family. The Loud House movie is a tacky film that's more shallow than fun. Yes, I'm well aware that young children are the target audience for this film, not men in their 30s. But kids deserve so much better than something this lazy and insulting, especially from the same studio who gave us the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Based on the book by Jeff Kinney, Diary of a Wimpy Kid follows Greg Huffley, who is about to join middle school with his best friend Rowley. However, right from day one, the two boys are classed as unpopular kids. Greg comes up with ways to change their popularity status, but his schemes could cost his friendship with Rowley. This film was my first introduction to anything Diary of a Wimpy Kid related, and I can't say that it made me a new fan. Out of all the animated films that came out this year, this was maybe the least remarkable or special one. Sure, I like how brutally honest it can be about how cruel and hard middle school can be for kids. So much so that children at Greg's age will really resonate with the difficulties he faces. But I never found anything to this film that made it stand out from other movies about school life. I appreciated the message that having a best friend will help you survive middle school a little better, because that is true, but not every kid has that privilege. So it's not exactly a universal message. Audience's biggest complaint about the movie is that it's just too short. And you know what? Yes, 58 minutes wasn't enough for the intended story. Overall, Diary of a Wimpy Kid is quite mediocre. It's kind of a Diet Peanuts movie. As a coming-of-age comedy movie, kids will enjoy it fine, and maybe learn a good lesson about appreciating their best friend by the end. I just can't say that it's anything inspired, especially when ranked next to all the much more creative and memorable kids movies that came out this year. I think it needed to be an extra 20 or 30 minutes longer, plus Greg's popularity schemes could have been much more imaginative, because all of his attempts to become popular in this film are sparked by coincidences or luck. I would have liked plans or strategies that showed more thought, like an alter ego, a big stunt, or a clever prank. Something unique and grand that could have made the film more special. Injustice. Based on the hit video games, Injustice is set in an alternate DC universe where the Joker's tricked Superman into killing Lois Lane. The grieving Man of Steel teams up with other superheroes to use their powers to end world violence. But Supes becomes a cruel tyrant, so Batman and other Justice League members have to protect their Earth from this vengeful version of Kal-El. I've never played the Injustice games myself, so I'm not the right person to say whether this film is faithful to them. But as an animated movie, Injustice isn't very good. The issue is that it tries to squash and cram way too much into a 75-minute movie, which results in a bloated affair that rushes through all its plot beats. It also overindulges in its violence so much that the death scenes become excessive, and I quickly felt numb to every supposedly sad goodbye. I get that the film wants to capture an atmosphere of widespread tragedy, but there's no time given to take in the sense of loss, and a lot of these characters had barely any screen time before they got killed. It's all more melodramatic than heartbreaking to watch. It doesn't help that any moment of grief is cut very short, and then kind of brushed aside soon after, because the movie is eager to move on to the next fight. The film touches on some interesting debates for sure, and I like that these superheroes had their own personal takes.
Still, you could never get rid of all the guns.
But most, you know we could.
Just because we can, doesn't mean we should.
But the movie keeps hurrying itself along, and heated arguments started soon become completely irrelevant. DC animated movies are renowned for being sophisticated and mature films, movies that capture the poignancy of the comics. But Injustice kind of ends up being more like your typical popcorn superhero movie, a stale one at that. However, I did appreciate the film's sense of humour, yet the jokes are often misplaced and don't fit the tone, but I did enjoy a lot of the characters' quips.
Are you insane?
Let me answer that question with an action that reveals character.
What? Oh, shit.
If this movie pleased fans of the video games, then that's fantastic, but this is a film that did not make me care. It tries to be serious, grown up and dark, yet never earns its maturity. Raya and the Last Dragon. Long ago in the land of Kumandra, the evil spirits known as the Droon turned many innocent people to stone. But the last dragon in existence, Sisu, concentrated all of her energy into a gem that unpetrified every human and banished the Droon. A power struggle for the gem caused Kumandra to divide into 5 different tribes, and the gem itself ended up in the possession of the Heart Tribe. 500 years later, Chief Banja of the Heart Tribe trained his daughter Raya to protect the gem, so that she could defend it from those after it. Banja also believed that he could reunite Kumandra, so he held a huge feast of peace for every tribe. The party was awkward at first, but Namari, daughter of the Fang Tribe's chief, made the first move by befriending Raya. Raya ended up trusting Namari enough to show her the dragon gem, only for Namari to kick Raya in the back and send a signal to her tribe. This led to all the tribes fighting over the gem, causing it to break into shards, and each chief stole a piece. Then the Droon returned, petrifying many people to stone, including Chief Banja. Over the next 6 years, Raya tries to find a way to resurrect Sisu, and luckily one ritual is successful. Sisu says that she can't create a new gem, but she can restore the old one if it's fixed back together. So Raya and Sisu plan to travel to every tribe's home to retrieve all the shards of the broken dragon gem. Along their adventure, they befriend the young restaurateur Boon, the baby con artist Little Noi, and the warrior Tong, who have all lost their family to the Droon. At the same time, a grown-up Namari is trying to hunt down Sisu to make her mother proud and gain power for her tribe. Now, this movie was great for Southeast Asian representation, and yes, it's a visually stunning animated film with gorgeously designed backdrops. However, I still think it's a bad film and one of the worst offerings of 2021. Firstly, the pacing is very weak and unimaginative. For a movie about a grand adventure, each gem piece is quite easy for our heroes to grab, to the point where it feels like the stakes are too low and the quest is too easy. There's no sense of a challenge, we're just watching Raya and her friends sneak into a tribe's community, briefly face a short-lived obstacle, and then snatch a gem like it's a piece of candy. While I do sympathise with Boon, Noi and Tong for their losses, I mean, they're the real victims in all of this mess. Their friendship is very rushed, which makes their camaraderie together seem rather forced. They're certainly cute together, but their bonding arc happens way too fast.
There's too much spice.
No, there's too much bamboo.
What do you know? You have the taste buds of a tall baby.
Well, you dress like a tall baby.
Give me the spoon. I'm taking over.
Back off, Tidal Wave. I'm the professional here.
If I'm honest though, the biggest problem with the film is its message. You see, Raya has developed a very cynical outlook on the world, because Namari's betrayal ruined her faith in humanity. Sisu insists that Raya needs to forgive Namari, because she thinks there's still a chance for them to be friends. And the Last Dragon believes that good remains in this world.
How would I even approach Namari after all that's happened?
It may feel impossible, but sometimes you just have to take the first step.
Here's the problem with that sentiment though. Namari hasn't made a single effort at all to change or redeem herself. If anything, she's become even worse as an adult, because she's now a tyrant who is willing to kill people for the Last Dragon's power, going as far as to threaten to burn down a village. Yes, it's an empty village, but she doesn't know that, and she's ready to set innocent people on fire. Even when Namari ends up killing Sisu, she gaslights Raya into thinking that she was co-responsible for the murder, even though she obviously wasn't. No matter how many sad or scared faces she pulls for the audience, Namari isn't a misunderstood tragic character. She's a narcissistic villain and Raya's abuser. Raya never owed Namari an effort of forgiveness, and she has every right to punish Namari for being a fascist. The movie downplays Raya's visible PTSD and feelings of betrayal, in favour of pushing forward an over-idealistic message of immediately trusting every stranger you meet and forgiving everyone that's hurt you regardless of whether they deserve forgiveness. Look, I'm all for a film that encourages finding hope and love in a dark, scary world, especially a kids movie. But this film takes that sentiment to an extreme that's borderline toxic positivity. Raya and the Last Dragon might be pretty looking and an important milestone in Southeast Asian representation, but as a movie, it's severely misguided and woefully uninspired. America, the Motion Picture. This Netflix animated movie is a retelling of the founding of America, in which a group of revisionist historical icons team up to take down the British, and create the USA. It's a noisy and obnoxious film that dials everything up to 20. If I was to best describe it, I'd say that it's like a Robot Chicken sketch dragged out into a feature film. I mean, the joke of the movie would be funny as a 1-minute fake trailer, but as an actual film, it exhausts its one punchline very quickly. Sure, the film does sometimes make a great point.
They'll have all these rules, no one's allowed to have a single independent thought, and they're always taxing the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, that sounds rough. My issue is just that they took my land, poisoned my people to the brink of extinction, and murdered everyone I've ever cared for. So, real buzzkill.
That is classic fun, police. Those guys have no chill.
But the movie gets too carried away with itself to know what it's actually going for. It seems like it wants to parody every single aspect of American culture, which just makes the overall satire more chaotic than clever. Heck, sometimes I couldn't even tell if over-patriotism was being parodied or celebrated, so much so that the film sometimes ended up becoming what it was supposedly setting out to spoof. That being said, I can't say that I didn't have a fun time with this one. This isn't a good movie by any stretch, but there's some mindless entertainment to be had from all the batshit insanity and over-the-top momentum.
Please, Your Majesty, Your Highness, I can do it faster. Thank God.
I was also a little charmed by the concept of a himbo George Washington, simply because I love this particular trope.
Hey, what the? Oh my God, your neck's... Oh my God, your neck is bleeding! Look, is this part of the show? Look, I don't do well with interactive theater.
And it is pretty awesome that the awful Thomas Edison has been reimagined as an empowered female Chinese scientist.
This is for...
I just can't say that this was a well-crafted movie. It really needed to be kept on a rein of some kind to help it find its place, but there's no denying that it was one of the more interesting animated movies that came out this year. Spirit Untamed. When a little girl called Lucky moves in with her estranged father in the countryside, she becomes enchanted by a ranch horse named Spirit. Lucky's two new friends, Prue and Abigail, help her to befriend Spirit, and she seals a bond with the stallion. Unfortunately, a group of sleazy wranglers want to auction off Spirit's family, so Lucky, Prue and Abigail ride the horses on an adventure to stop the villains. I've never seen the Spirit TV show that this film is a reboot of, but I'm a big fan of the original 2000s movie, and while this is nowhere near as good as that film, I found it to be an okay effort. Matt Damon isn't back to voice Spirit and there's no Bryan Adams songs, which does make it feel like something is missing. However, this actually leads to the movie depending entirely on the animation to get across the horses' thoughts and feelings. I especially like how the horses have distinct personalities, each of which are kind of inspired by the little girls who ride them.
You might want to try something a little less potato-y. Horses are finicky. They've got a real sweet tooth.
There's also something great about a movie for little girls that's about kids their age who defy all odds to save the day on their own and share a genuine friendship together founded on a love for horses.
Tomorrow, we face our destiny. But tonight, we feast!
Yes, I am starving.
What? Oh, do I have marshmallow on my face?
Most mainstream animated films for this demographic tend to be about fairy tale princesses, so I like that Spirit Untamed gives little girls something far more relatable. But I can't say that this film stuck with me after watching it. A lot of the movie is a blur when I look back on it, with only 2 or 3 scenes sticking out in memory. Plus the villain is just your generic animal exploiting bad guy. There's nothing at all remarkable about him or his goons.
Oh, would you look at that? Breaks my heart you've come so far for nothing. Kinda brings a tear to my eye.
The father-daughter storyline is a tad underexplored too, because Lucky and her dad have a fallout for most of the movie, but Lucky's dad does come to realise the mistakes of being an overprotective dad, and the eventual payoff is cute enough to hit me in the feels. All in all, Spirit Untamed is kind of forgettable in the grand scheme of what came out this year, but I think it's harsh to call it pointless or unnecessary, because we need more mainstream movies like this for little girls. Boss Baby, family business. Tim is now a grown man, married to a wife called Carol and raising his 2 daughters, Tabitha and Tina, while Ted has become a successful CEO and has distanced himself from his brother. One night, Tina reveals that she can talk and that Tim and Ted have been assigned to a special mission by Baby Corp. They have to transform back into kids again and go undercover at Tabitha's school for gifted children, run by the eccentric Dr. Irwin, who turns out to be an evil baby in disguise and wants to use a phone app to brainwash adults. Unfortunately, the brothers struggle to get along, and Tim wants to focus more on helping Tabitha's schoolwork. I've actually grown to appreciate the first Boss Baby a lot more, but this sequel though, well, I have mixed feelings. I'm not even sure if I think it's good or bad. I mean, it's a very easily distracted film. Yes, that's kind of the point, because the brothers have to learn to focus and develop better teamwork, but their frequent sidetracking leads to the film having a noticeably wobbly direction. I also felt very uncomfortable whenever the villain was on screen. Yes, he's the bad guy, so of course he's meant to be a bit sinister, but there's something uncanny valley and eerie about his design that doesn't feel right. Oh, and Jeff Goldblum's voice does not go with the character at all. Not just because cartoon villains aren't Goldblum's wheelhouse, but his quirky trademark delivery makes the strange uncanniness even worse.
You know, I could use somebody like you, with a superior intelligence like my own.
Despite these problems though, I did enjoy Boss Baby 2. It stays true to the spirit of the first film by mainly being about the relationship between the brothers. I genuinely wanted to see these characters I liked from the first film to patch things back up again.
Look, I'm sorry about what I said at recess.
What happens on the playground stays on the playground.
It's also just as funny as the first movie. It retains the original silly and wholesome sense of humour, and I found myself laughing just as much as last time.
Come closer. Let me see your face. Closer. Closer still. Oh, Timothy, it is you.
Hey, what was that for?
You cast me into eternal darkness and wreak havoc on my circadian rhythms.
Those who watch my channel know that I'm eager to be a dad someday, so it was often easy for me to forgive the film's many flaws, because I'm a sucker for cute daddy-daughter storylines. However, I did feel a bit iffy about Tim bonding with Tabitha under a disguise. Tabitha just sees this boy as a new school friend she can confide in, and she has no idea that he's really her dad. It's kind of, well, spying? I didn't like how wrong it all felt. Overall, Boss Baby 2 isn't as good as its predecessor, but it could have been much worse. Plus, it's weird and crazy enough to stop it from being completely forgettable. Paw Patrol The Movie. When the crooked humdinger ends up becoming mayor of Adventure City, Paw Patrol set up a station in the center, so that they can protect Adventure City citizens from their new mayor's terrible schemes and projects. Now, I'm far from the target audience for this movie, and I've only seen clips of the television show, but for preschool movie standards, this wasn't that bad of a film. It's no masterpiece, but effort was put into turning this Nick Jr. show into a theatrical movie. Not only does it look like it has a much larger budget than the TV series, because everything is better rendered, but there's also some very cinematic shots in the movie. I was truly surprised to see Paw Patrol of all things going this hard. There's a conscious effort to expand on the television show too. It's not just a long episode of the TV series. There's a dramatic change of location, updated vehicles for each pup, plus Paw Patrol's arch nemesis is making things personal by secretly jailing dogs and tampering with the city's weather.
Clear? The cloud catcher is for studying clouds, not for changing the weather.
And I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Suck up those clouds or I'm closing this university forever!
Adventure City is also where Chase grew up, and he has traumatic memories attached to the place. I like that his owner, Ryder, validates his PTSD and is willing to put his pup's mental health first. This kid has more compassion as a leader than most adult employers.
I don't know what happened. I'm just glad you're okay. I'm sorry. No, it's my fault. I thought you'd be okay in Adventure City, but it's still too much for you. I'll be fine. I just need to... You're not fine. You need to take a break. We'll take care of the rescues for a while.
The film introduces a brand new character too, Liberty, an Adventure City expert who guides our heroes while they're on their missions. I'll confess that she can be kind of annoying, because she keeps bringing up how she's an honorary Paw Patrol member every 5 seconds.
I'm a dog. I'm also kind of an honorary member of the Paw Patrol. Reporting for duty. Oh, unofficially, of course. You know, like an honorary member. I am an honorary member at the moment, but my authority should still be respected.
But at least she's a helpful side character when needed, and her fangirling makes her a great surrogate for the target audience.
Oh, I can't believe I'm looking at the Paw Patrol. I am such a big fan. This is off the leash.
To be honest, it's the villain who really stole the movie for me though. Mayor Humdinger is actually very funny for a preschool movie baddie, and his campy childishness made for some entertaining scenes.
I can't believe the Paw Patrol crashed my party.
Yes, sir.
I can't stand those dogs.
Everyone knows you're a cat person.
I can't stand them.
Yes, sir.
Hey, wait up!
He also serves as the perfect antithesis to Paw Patrol. While the pups do everything they can to protect this city and put the civilian safety first, Humdinger only cares about being worshipped as an idol, and all of his political decisions are just selfish ego-stroking stunts that cause panic or disaster. I seriously wasn't expecting to enjoy this movie as much as I did, but that just goes to show that even preschool films can have good standards. The only reason I'm not ranking it higher is because I know I would have appreciated it more if I was a Paw Patrol fan. For example, I could tell that Humdinger had a history with Paw Patrol, but what that entails is left vague to casual movie watchers. Plus, with the exception of Chase, most of the pups are very one-note, and only Paw Patrol fans will be able to fill in the blank slates because they have a history with these characters. So yeah, while Paw Patrol slightly raises the bar for preschool cinema today, and I'm very happy for little fans who got to see their favourite puppies on the big screen, I can't exactly say that it works very well as a standalone film. Straight out of nowhere, Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog. In this animated crossover movie, Scooby teams up with Courage to unravel a mystery tied to the ancient roots of nowhere. I was on the fence when going into this movie because it seemed very gimmicky, but I also thought that the premise was a match made in heaven. After watching it, yeah, it's kind of nostalgia bait. However, it turned out much better than how I anticipated. It's refreshing to see a crossover story where there's no silly misunderstanding or conflict to contrive their meeting. Courage and Scoop are best pals right away, like they were destined to be mates. It's really sweet. That's the thing, Straight Out of Nowhere, despite its horror elements, is quite wholesome at heart. This is mainly thanks to Courage's owner, Muriel, voiced by the late Thea White, a sweet old Scottish lady who may be naive, but has so much love to give to others, including strangers she's just met. She has this soft maternal touch to the movie.
Oh, it's always so nice when my Courage brings home new friends. Such a treat.
The film does understand the appeal of Courage's character too, that you can be scared of something, but that shouldn't stop you from being a hero who protects others, because fear and bravery aren't exclusive things.
What is the true difference between courage and fear? Courage isn't the absence of fear. True courage is taking action in the face of fear.
Although, there are reasons why I didn't rank this movie higher, like the mystery itself is only passable at best. Sure, it makes sense and adds some texture to Nowhere lore, but the clues for the culprit are kind of meh, and most of the information we're given is dumped in the ending. Plus, as cute as Muriel's interactions are with the gang, the film does kind of struggle to tie Muriel and Eustace into Mystery Inc.'s adventure. A lot of the time, they're just kind of there.
I've been doing some research, even though my internet connection has been pretty spotty. But from what I've discovered...
Hey, Mayor! Knock, knock. Who's there?
Do you know?
Do you know who?
Do you know who voted for you? Because I sure didn't.
Not to mention, Eustace gets an awful and pointless rap scene that just keeps going and going. Please make it stop.
The history of my income. It's a mystery where it came from. But the bottom line's a face like mine's worth a nooga-booga million in the bank, son.
But I think the biggest detriment to the movie is the fact that Courage's creator, John R. Dilworth, had no involvement with the film. His lack of fingerprints on the project are very obvious, with only one scene coming close to recapturing the show's horror spirit. Overall, Straight Out of Nowhere could have been a lot worse, and it was nice to see a crossover with genuine heart, but I know deep down that it could have been an even better movie in Dilworth's hands. My Little Pony: A New Generation. In this MLP movie set during the 5th generation of ponies, the races of Earth, Pegasi and Unicorn have been divided and everyone has lost their magic. The rebellious Sunny wants to change all of this though, so she joins forces with ponies of different races and they go on a quest together to collect a series of gems that could bring back magic. I actually lost interest in My Little Pony a while back, so I wasn't that excited about seeing this film, but I actually found it to be one of the more watchable animated movies of 2021. I like that this film isn't just a rehash or remake of the previous generation, not just because racism has divided everyone, but half of our heroes' team are made up of ponies in positions of power, and we get to see their authority roles challenged by unlikely friendships.
Are you sure about all this? Because if we just go back to Maritime Bay...
What have we got to lose?
By giving magic back to our enemies? Let me think. I know, a lot.
Come on. Do they look like enemies to you?
My sparkle is aquamarine? That's like
This is also a much more modernized vision of Equestria. It really feels like time has passed on, because this fairy tale realm is starting to resemble our world a lot more now, and we get to see these magic ponies doing more relatable things. The movie's lesson on racism isn't exactly nuanced, but you know what? In an age where real Nazis are using the My Little Pony brand for their movement, I think Hasbro needs to be much less subtle about racial intolerance to kids. I appreciate that the movie isn't just simply saying racism is bad. It really explores every flavour and facet of bigotry culture. How parents can pass on their prejudice to their children, when giant corporations use xenophobia to sell products, how conspiracy theories can be cooked up by the delusionally paranoid, and how law enforcement can be complicit with a bigoted system.
I'm the sheriff!
Exactly! Other ponies look up to you. You can help!
The law is the law, Sonny, and I'm here to uphold it and keep every pony safe.
Aha! You just said every pony. That includes Pegasi and unicorns.
You might notice similarities between this film and Raya, but I'd say that Hasbro tackled the same concept far better. We spend enough time in each equestrian community to get to know their culture, each gem is a high stakes challenge for our heroes to achieve, and the bond between our heroes is developed far more naturally. My only grievance with this film is that Sprout, who becomes a literal fascist tyrant in the finale, gets away with his crimes by the movie's end. The film acts like Sprout just made a silly oopsie-daisy, yet he incited an unjustified war, caused property damage, and endangered pony lives. I get that the movie wants to teach love, togetherness, and acceptance, but that didn't mean that Hasbro had to also forgive a fascist pony, one that they based on a real-life evil dictator no less. Sprout may end up regretting his actions, but he's still a war criminal and deserved to be jailed. In spite of this though, I think that My Little Pony: A New Generation is an overall good children's movie that tackles racism with maturity, translates the franchise into 3D successfully, and actually works as a standalone film because the main characters are brand new. I'm still not a My Little Pony fan anymore, but I'm glad that I gave this film a chance. Vevo. Vevo is a kinkajou who lives in Cuba and busks music with his kindly owner Andres. When Andres is invited to reunite with his long-lost love, the singer Marta, he's eager to meet up with her in Florida and confess his feelings to her through a song he wrote. However, Andres sadly dies in his sleep. A local funeral is held for his family and friends, where we meet his niece-in-law Rosa and her daughter Gabby. Vevo becomes determined to deliver his owner's love song to Marta, so he sneaks into Gabby's luggage when she heads back home to the US. Gabby is willing to help Vevo get to Marta's concert, but a gang of Girl Scouts want to take Vevo away from Gabby for environmental reasons. Now, I won't lie, the adventure aspect of this movie didn't really win me over. It's your typical frantically paced story of a domestic animal lost in the wild, with a bunch of animal-stealing antagonists thrown in. But that's not what endeared me about Vevo as a movie. Lin-Manuel-Miranda's original songs are a main selling point. I don't think I've ever heard a bad song from him yet. Not only is every single song super catchy and full of personality, but I really liked how music itself was integral to the story. You see, we can hear Vevo when he talks out loud, but no human characters can understand what he's saying. And it's music that builds a bridge of communication. I find that to be such a beautiful sentiment that gives a purpose to the songs.
Wow, you learn quick. I must be a really good teacher.
Follow my lead, kid.
Whoa, this sounds good.
Yeah, I see, potential. Raw talent.
Gabby is a fantastic little girl character as well. I can see why some folks might find her annoying because she is quite intense, but I love how proud she is of her free-spirited individuality. She's not scared of what others think of her or desperate to fit in. It's something we could all learn from her in a world that unhealthily pressures normality. I also loved how the movie sets out to show how important it is to say goodbye to a lost loved one. Andreas' music sheet is a chance for Vevo to tie loose ends, a way for Marta to say farewell to her old friend, and an opportunity for Gabby, who didn't get to say bye to her dad before he passed away, to help someone else express their feelings from the grave. While I do think better animated movies came out this year, Vevo is still one of the stronger releases we got, in spite of its flaws, because it wears its vibrant passion on its sleeves, and really speaks from the heart when it comes to grief. Ron's gone wrong. Tech giant Bubble have just released a brand new product called the Bee-Bot. Everyone gets to enjoy the fun of a robot best friend except a boy called Barney. However, on the day after Barney's birthday, his family gift him with a Bee-Bot they bought off a delivery man, which Barney names Ron. But it turns out that Ron is defective. Barney tries to teach everything he can to Ron so that he can have the perfect best friend. Unfortunately, when Bubble gets wind of a broken Bee-Bot causing hijinks, the company's CEO demands that Ron is found. The plotting for Ron's Gone Wrong does kind of hop along at random. It all has this very and then this happens kind of writing to it, which makes everything a bit bumpy and zigzaggy. I can't say that stopped me from really liking it though. Despite its scratch marks and glitches, I'm happy with how Ron's Gone Wrong turned out.
Look, my best friend out of the box.
I am insert registered name's best friend out of my box. Insert registered name is my best friend.
It teaches a beautiful message of how it's okay to not fit in with the crowd, because there's a freedom that comes with weirdness, and we're all entitled to be our strange selves. Ron's adorable eccentricities are celebrated as a beautiful miracle, because he defies his programming to be who he wants to be, and he shows how unusual personalities bring joy to others in this boring world.
That's why I like rocks.
That is sad and also tragic.
What are you into, huh? Electricity?
Electricity is better than rocks.
God, what are you...
The film also tackles friendship through a mature lens, showing how friendship is a two-way relationship, not a calculated formula that benefits just one side. That taking friends' feelings into consideration is the foundation of a healthy friendship. I like that this movie is also willing to criticize data harvesting by corrupt corporations, because it took some guts for the filmmakers to trust kids to understand such an adult topic. And I do think it's a great way for kids to learn about this fact of the internet. Ron's Gone Wrong has its bugs, yet behind all of its errors, it's a heartwarming and quirky movie that believes kids are smart enough to follow a story about the complexity of technology ethics, the philosophy of friendship, and the ideology of self-expression. Wish Dragon. Din is a working class student who wants to reunite with his childhood friend Lena, who is the daughter of a wealthy businessman called Mr. Wang and a successful celebrity in her own right. One day, Din is given a strange teapot which summons the mighty Wish Dragon Long, who must grant Din 3 wishes in order to enter the spirit world. Din eagerly uses his wishes to create a rich alter ego called Dan, so that he can impress Lena and get her father's blessing. However, it turns out that Mr. Wang himself is after the teapot, because his company is failing and he needs magic wishes to secure his finances. A lot of folks have been quick to accuse this film of being a rip-off of Disney's Aladdin, which I honestly think is a very shallow criticism. Don't get me wrong, I noticed the similarities, but let's be real here. The Aladdin story was originally a folktale that's available in the public domain, and Sony Animation have simply created their own martial arts adaptation set in modern China, which they were always free to do. Heck, it's silly to assume that Sony was ever trying to hide what Wish Dragon was based on. Not to mention, I think there's more than enough differences between Wish Dragon and Disney's Aladdin. One thing I love about this film is how it shows the humble charms of Chinese working class life. While the wealthy Mr. Wang is too busy to spend time with his daughter, Din's neighbours come together like a family and bond over simple things. It's a very affectionate portrait of working class culture that shows how money can't buy community or love. The romance between Din and Lena is pretty adorable too, because their past together inspires this genuine chemistry, and their relationship rekindles Lena with her working class roots. I really did want these two to get together despite the taboo of interclass romance in this culture, because they make for a very cute couple.
Huh? Oh, here.
But the best thing about Wish Dragon to me is Long himself. Long isn't this whimsical bundle of joy. He's a cynical, grouchy character with no patience and selfish desires. I loved this twist on the genie trope because it's funny seeing this bitter, sarcastic dragon being reluctantly dragged into Din's comical hijinks, falling in love with mundane modern things, and giving terrible dating advice.
To be honest, it was just really nice to have someone who listened to me.
Now completely ignore her, and she's yours. Huh? Look around you, Din. Rich people never pay attention to anyone else. All they talk about is their own business, or how much money they make. It's almost an art form.
Dan, are you listening to anything I said?
Not a word.
There's also a charm to seeing the grumpy Long gradually showing a soft side as he slowly opens up about his past and sees that human connection is way more rewarding than gold riches. I really liked Wish Dragon. It's laugh out loud funny, endearingly wholesome, and gives a unique Chinese modern martial arts spin to the Aladdin formula. Luca. Luca is a sea creature who works on his family farm. but tires of the boring job of fish herding. However, his parents refuse to let him go and explore land. One day, he befriends a sea creature his age called Alberto, who shows him how to survive on land. Alberto convinces Luca that they need a Vespa to travel in freedom. Unfortunately, Luca is caught by his parents, who decide to send him away to the deepest level of the sea, far, far away from humans. So Luca runs from home and decides to live in the local human town with Alberto. The boys meet a bully called Ekele, who teases them for being outsiders, but a tough girl called Julia stands up for them. Julia explains that Ekele wins the town race every year, which consists of swimming, pasta eating, and cycling. But she's determined to beat him this year. Alberto and Luca decide to team up with Julia for the race, so that they can use the prize money to buy their own Vespa. This movie is the closest we've ever gotten to a Studio Ghibli film from Hollywood. It's a relaxing nautical fairy tale that shows how there's an art to simplicity sometimes. With so many movies nowadays being focused on spectacle and size, Luca was a refreshing change of pace. A cute story of friendship between two merpeople who have fallen in love with human culture. It has this relaxing sunny atmosphere that immerses us in the exotic Italian seaside. I could see why Alberto and Luca would become enchanted by this community. Luca also gives us such memorable side characters as the tough-spirited Julia.
Santa mozzarella. Eyes up! Huh? Looking down is what's making you fall.
And her adorable himbo dad, who serves as a wonderful role model to disabled kids.
Where's Alberto?
He left, Signor Marcovaldo.
Do you know where he went?
No, but I don't think he wants anyone looking for him.
Maybe not, but just in case.
There's still high stakes at hand. Luca's parents want to find him and bring him back to the sea. The locals are willing to kill sea creatures if they spot any, and Ekele is a villain who is willing to hurt children who bruise his ego.
Hey, look who it is! And with no Julia to hide behind.
Come on, let's go.
No, something's fishy with you two. I mean, besides the smell.
Oh, and by the way, it's great to see an animated movie villain that's simply evil with no deep explanations. We don't get enough of these kinds of antagonists nowadays. I seriously want more movies like Luca, animated features that aren't afraid to be humble and small in a landscape of giant noisy blockbusters. I loved Luca so much that I want to make it a cozy summer tradition to watch. If that's not a sign of a memorable movie, then I don't know what is. Arlo the Alligator Boy. Arlo is a little alligator boy who lives in the bayou with his adoptive mother, Edmé. On Arlo's 15th birthday, Edmé gives Arlo his birth wristband, which shows that he was born in New York, so Arlo heads to the Big Apple to meet his long-lost father, Ansel Beauregard. Along the way, he befriends a band of quirky characters that society has rejected or abused. This movie is so pure and innocent that it makes my heart pop. It's Arlo himself that mainly carries the soul of the film, a truly lovable cinnamon roll and the perfect role model for little boys.
Where do you come from, Birdie?
Nowhere special.
Sure you do. You're the specialest person I've ever met.
But Bertie, a teenage giantess who wanders the world alone, also steals the movie, because she's a dignified, sensitive and sympathetic portrayal of plus-size women, and her struggle to connect with others in fear of rejection is beyond heart-wrenching.
Truth is, I'm not really used to staying around the same people for very long.
Arlo is also a musical, and you know what? I can't stop re-listening to songs from this movie, seriously. Every single song gives me goosebumps because there's so much raw emotion behind the lyrics, music and visuals.
In the life we want flashes to flashes. In the love we had ashes to ashes. We are lost and we're drifting and drifting away.
Some folks have complained that this film lacks originality. Now sure, there's no denying that it treads a few recognisable things, and shares a lot in common with Will Ferrell's Elf, but that doesn't stop it from using these tropes and cliches to craft a powerful story of its own. One that's so well told that it doesn't actually matter how familiar it seems.
You don't get it, do you? You showing up here like this, it puts everything I've worked so hard for at risk.
No, I do get it. I risk everything to be here.
This movie has also found a strong audience with the LGBTQ+ community, which makes complete sense. Not just because a few characters are queer-coded, and the voice cast is made up of beloved gay icons, but queer individuals will immediately resonate with the movie's tale of societal rejects finding their own quirky little community. Arlo is testament to how you can recycle existing storytelling templates into something magical, imaginative, endearing, and heartfelt if the love is put in. What Arlo lacks in originality, it totally makes up for in passion and sincerity. Batman: The Long Halloween Part 2. The Long Halloween is a two-part animated Batman movie that follows Batman, Harvey Dent, Commissioner Gordon, and Catwoman as they try to work out the identity of a mysterious killer who is murdering members of the Falcone gangster family each holiday. I put Part 2 lower than Part 1 because it just doesn't seem to have the same nuance as the first film. Plus the holiday killer premise, the main appeal of these films, gets kind of upstaged by Harvey Dent's transformation into Two-Face. That's not to say that this second installment is a huge step down or anything, far from it. Part 2 is still a lot of fun and a great example of serious adult animation done right. There's a lot here to get invested in. Like, it invites a decent amount of Batman villains into the story that weren't in Part 1, each of which play their role in the grand scheme of things, all while staying true to their characters within Gotham lore.
As for the Bat, delivering him wasn't part of the deal. So we can do whatever we want with him. What fun.
There's also some time spent on developing Bruce's own relationship with the Falcone family, who used to share ties with his philanthropist parents. We really do feel for Bruce's conflicted feelings about his mum and dad's history with a crime organization.
They were young, two exceptionally good people living in an exceptionally bad place, trying to make it better.
But Falcone? Didn't they know that by legitimizing him they were helping to make a monster?
They made difficult choices and more than a few mistakes.
Even though Two-Face ends up taking away the holiday killer's thunder, I still think that the film tackles Harvey's transformation fantastically. There are already seeds planted for Harvey's dark side in Part 1, and the sequel lets them all explode in everyone's faces, giving us a Two-Face that's both unsettling to watch on screen and a tragic symbol of lost hope, as Dent lets Nihilism push him to no longer feel any belief in justice or remorse for lives. There's a melancholic sense of loss to the whole corrosion of what Harvey once stood for.
I really owe it all to you, Carmine. You've taught me that all men are guilty and innocent, which makes justice nothing more than the flip of a coin.
The holiday killer does pop in to shoot another Falcone now and again too, so it's not like they've been forgotten. Their presence is very much felt amongst the Falcone family and the mystery is still intriguing. While the film does skim through a lot of the holidays, it's gut-punching seeing Bruce spending his Mother's Day being gassed by the Scarecrow and witnessing visions of his parents' death right in front of him. It's perhaps the darkest portrayal of Bruce's trauma I've ever seen in a Batman film.
Bruce.
Where is she, Alfred?
She?
My mother. I was with my mother.
I won't spoil who the holiday killer turns out to be, but I will say that the films did a great job setting up the clues, because the eventual twist makes perfect sense in hindsight. Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1. The Long Halloween's first part expertly sets the stage for what's to come, but is also a great standalone film on its own too. It focuses a lot more on the holiday killer than Part 2, and the entertainment comes from dissecting all the suspects. The fact that there's 4 or 5 leads with believable motivations means that we have a fair number of possible suspects to ponder about and question. Audiences can't instantly go, oh it's them, because all these leads are equally suspicious. At the same time, it's hinted that maybe Harvey Dent himself is the killer behind the mask, because Dent is a man who's obsessed with busting the Falcones. But Bruce refuses to believe in such a notion, even though a part of him has thought about it.
May I ask why you're keeping the 5th suspect off the board?
Because I don't like it.
We don't want to consider Harvey as a culprit ourselves either, because the movie does a great job making him not only charismatically charming and passionate about his job, but Harvey's tender marriage to his wife Gilda will make your heart melt too.
Now, are we still having movie night or not? No, don't even answer that. Come on.
Unfortunately, the Falcone case is slowly driving Harvey down a dark path, and his irritable stress is putting a strain on a once beautiful and innocent marriage.
I just want to have a normal night. Can we just have a normal night?
I don't even know what that is anymore.
Of course, the iconic Joker is a major suspect as well, and perhaps the easiest character to link to a string of murders, because he's the chaotic and unpredictable clown prince of Gotham. The inclusion of the Joker adds this fascinating contrast between the grounded world of realistic gangsters and the bonkers eccentricity of Batman's rogues gallery, a parallel that the film is very aware of, as it explores the relationship between serious criminals and fantastical supervillains.
You know, things used to run smooth in this town. Now we got killer crocs and moths and sewer zombies. Not to mention a homicidal maniac skulking around the holidays hitting made men.
One suspect is even a figure of tragedy, Alberto Falcone. It's easy to accuse him as a lead, but once it's revealed that he's actually a victim of his crime family's abuse and control, we genuinely feel sorry for him. Alberto is a gifted and intelligent man, yet his father just sees him as a numbers geek and won't let him live a normal, healthy life outside the family's crime business. It's so sad and painful seeing this poor man crying his heart out.
I would happily trade that for a normal life. To spend my days as far away from Gotham as possible.
Oh, and can I just say how amazing these movies look? They have this refined and mature art style that's gorgeous and full of rich atmosphere. There's so many shots from part 1 that stuck with me, many of which utilize the festive settings to create eerie, haunting images. But yeah, go check out both parts of The Long Halloween if you haven't yet. It's a shame that it kind of went under the radar this year. The Mitchells vs. the Machines. Katie Mitchell is a teenage filmmaker who just got accepted into film school, but her dad Rick has doubts about her becoming successful, which causes them to have a fallout. Rick wants to fix things, so he cancels Katie's plane flight and springs a family road trip on her. Katie, Rick, mother Linda, brother Aaron, and dog Monchi take the roads to California together. Meanwhile, Dr. Mark Bowman, the pioneer behind the PAL system, has announced a new line of robots called PAL Max, and throws away his old PAL. In revenge, the original PAL turns all the robots evil and orders them to stuff humans into ships. Luckily, the Mitchells survive this robot uprising by hiding in a cafe. Katie has a plan to defeat the robots, but Rick won't take it seriously. However, a pair of defective robots called Eric and Deborah Bot say that Katie's plan is realistic and offer to help the humans. It won't be easy though, because Pal knows that the Mitchells are alive and is prepared to kill them on sight. I really resonated with this story of a teenage filmmaker because I saw so much of my own adolescent years in Katie Mitchell and felt like Sony Animation had validated my younger self. The Mitchells vs. the Machines is a joyous, enthusiastic and colourful film. It explores the family dynamic in a world of heavy consumerism, societal pressures, and easy distractions, while also celebrating the imagination of young people and how unconventional hobbies can contribute to the world. Folks initially thought that this film was going to preach about how today's technology is bad, yet it actually does quite the opposite. Sure, the movie points out how people are glued to their phones a lot, but there is some truth to that, come on. And the movie is willing to show what modern apps and gadgets can do for the world. It's also one of the funniest animated films I've ever seen. I can't think of a single joke that was anything below S tier, because every gag and line is laced with a special kind of comedic genius.
Eric! Jambareeqi! Get those robots!
Okay, I found one.
Me too.
Yay! We win!
The other one!
Up, right.
This movie is a prime example of how Sony Animation has been on fire lately. It's visually inventive, unapologetically silly, and bursting with family heart. Trust me, it was really close to being my number 1 pick. So close. Before I reveal my number 1 pick, I'd just like to remind folks to consider subscribing to my channel. And if you're already subscribed, don't forget to click that notification bell. On with the show! Encanto. The Madrigal family are renowned for each having amazing supernatural powers, which they use to help their local community. They also live in a magical house that's alive called Casita. However, one member of the family, Mirabel, has no powers at all, but she's eager to be a beacon of support. One night, Mirabel gets a strange vision of the house falling apart, but her grandmother insists that everything is okay. Suddenly, each Madrigal starts losing their powers, which creates tension and strain within the family. So Mirabel tracks down the Madrigal outcast Bruno, who can see into the future, and she works with him to find a way to save the family. It was tricky deciding my number 1 spot, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I love Encanto the most. It has all the qualities of the best movies that came out this year and more. What makes Encanto refreshing is that it's not exactly following Disney movie traditions and conventions. It returns to the studio's simpler roots and condenses everything down to pure emotion. I mean, Encanto doesn't even have a villain, not the kind we'd expect from a Disney film anyway. Instead, the real antagonist comes in the form of every character's fears and insecurities, something far more internal.
I think you're carrying way too much.
No family member is evil or ill-willed, they just harbour fragile feelings that push them to put harmful stress on themselves or others. When you boil it all down, Encanto is basically about superhero family therapy, and how the Madrigal without any powers uses empathy to fix everything. But it's also a movie about how aiming for perfection isn't a surefire shield against failure or tragedy, because such unrealistic standards can be damaging to a person's mental health and well-being. Imperfection is what gives us personality, freedom and humanity. The songs for Encanto, which were written by Manuel-Miranda, are some of the best songs we've ever had from modern Disney. Every song leaves a lasting impression, and I've loved going back to them all again and again and again.
Give it to your sister's older. Give her all the heavy things we can't shoulder. Who am I if I can't run with the ball?
I also love how every musical number embraces the personalities of each Madrigal, by letting their superpowers dictate their singing styles and animated performances, resulting in songs that not only sound memorable and lively, but are also backed up with engaging dynamic visuals.
Grew to live in fear, we're no stuttering or stumbling. I can always hear him sort of muttering and mumbling. I associate him with the sound of falling sand.
Encanto represents everything I want more of from the animation industry. Animated films that don't bank on gimmicks, overthink ideas, or pander to the audience, and instead focus on telling a compelling character-driven story without any fancy bells or whistles. Okay, so that's the ranking of all the animated films that came out this year that I saw. How would you rank these movies? Let everyone know in the comment section below, and don't forget to click that like button. Have a happy new year, and cheerio folks.